Chris Sparandio did a first-person video on This Year is Next Year's Last Year. You should definitely go look at it. He also, at the same time that he did that video, gave me a copy of Comics Making. And this is a gem. Let's go take a look at it. And hello everyone, it's Tom, it's FANzine Live. We are doing new releases, again taking a look at the CXC, Cartoon Crossroads Columbus 2024 haul, and this is a piece that was kind of interesting. I picked up I guess you would say a referral from the fine folks at Kush Comics over in Riga, Latvia, that they were going to have a presence at CXC. And it was a gentleman named Chris Sparandio who did this zine that we featured in a first-person video a while back. You can see Kush Comics Co. This year is next year's last year. And I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, like at all, because the first-person video that Chris did is really, really good. And so I'm going to refer everybody to that. I will point out, though, that he has a really nifty style. It's kind of a vintage type thing, and he's honed it and fine-tuned it. You can see he's got a certain text, a certain lettering style, all done digital, of course. And then he does some neat things with color. And he plays with the conventions of old school comics when they had off-register color like this. And he's found a way. Oh, and then also you can see that he's done some stuff also with what looks to be toning. He's done this in a way that mimics the old styles, but he does it, as you can see, with modern comics. Yeah, another really good example. The CMYK combination, the kind of messy production job, that's all intentional, folks. You can see that he does it here too. And his lettering also is his kind of his own thing. So I'm going to put that off to the side and just strongly recommend you go take a look at his work there, because today we actually are talking about comics making, teaching the technology of comics. And this logo here is cats, and it's the Comic Art Teaching and Study Workshop at Rice University, put out by Argle Bargle Books. I had a hard time finding this. I'm not sure that it's a live link anymore. But anyway, so the neat thing that I like about this, first off, it's a gorgeous book. It is a mini comic size, quarter page, more or less, book, hardcover, immaculately constructed. And Chris gave this to me as a freebie. I suppose when somebody gives you something as an afterthought and just says, hey, you picked up a copy of this, you bought some copies of Kush, which of course is a fantastic zine. But here's this, just go ahead and take it. And I mean, it's a hardcover book. And after seeing his fantastic work from this, with This Year is Next Year's Last Year, and then seeing the fantastic Kush, he just kind of gives me this. I never bothered to look at this, and only in preparation for this video did I. And I'm so glad I did, And I apologize to Chris for not looking at it sooner. The book itself is gorgeous. I mean, the end papers are neat. The work inside, I mean, this is a fantastic looking book, as professionally done as they come. And it's an interesting kind of mix of content. And we'll start here. I'll just take a quick look through the contents. Starts with comic making in the university, then talking about digital tools in the pandemic. And then he does a tutorial on how to make vintage looking comics. Then he talks about public domain, talks about exhibitions and the like. So it's a little of everything. And as you can see, the About page is page 76. It's not a long, and the About page is the last page. It's not a long book, but gosh, it's really interesting. He starts with this whole information on comics making in the university. And this is really like an academic paper, going through the talk of comics, talking about some of the integration of comics into academia. And then he talks about his own comics art teaching and study workshop, or CATS, established at Rice University in 2015. And then some of the work that they've done there. It says this book has several parts. The first is comprised of condensed essays that reflect on the history, on the use of digital drawing tools. The next section highlights the use and application of the material in CATS, my own academic research, arts practice, and development of teaching methods. Third section reveals some of the projects that were undertaken by CATS. So he starts out, and we are now into the pandemic, and you see how he shows his samples all the way through this thing. But this is where it gets really interesting, around page 11. And I think that not that his story or the story of the CATS workshop at Rice isn't interesting, but this is a true how-to. And he starts talking about the things that you have to do to simulate a vintage-looking comic. And so he talks about how to make sure that the line is good. And he talks about some of the tools that he uses. Then he talks about messing with color and how to recreate that color. And then also paper, how to make the paper look right. Because, he says here, newsprint is the headline. Well, you can see we're not using newsprint as much, almost at all anymore. We're using real nice white, bright white, clear white paper. And so how do you go from this type of paper to this type of effect? All with digital tools. Then he talks about lettering. And for this, to get that vintage look, he does a real interesting piece on the Leroy lettering system. And the Leroy lettering system is what was used, I believe. This is a font that Sperandio made that mimics the Leroy lettering system. And if you look at this, this is very similar to what you would find in EC Comics. That very, I guess it immediately for me creates the association. If I see this type of a font, I immediately think 1950s EC Comics. And I think that's what he's going for. But he does do some other talk about some of the other fonts that were used as older, the Valkyrie font, the Ex Machina font. Okay. Talks a little bit about borrowing, appropriating, pilfering, hijacking, sampling, and lifting as a creative act. And as you can probably guess, looking at this, he does mashups of sampled 1950s era comics. Then he puts in his own pieces as well. So he talks about that. And then he gets to the tutorial. And he says that there are 3 stages to create a vintage effect: line, this one, color, this one, and texture, this one. And he basically goes through and point by point tells you how to do it. And it's 4 pages in the middle of this thing, which is just incredible. And then he shows you how it comes through. And he, messed with his line. And I'm guessing from this one, he probably drew it himself. I'd have to go back and read. He definitely did the color separations and the shading like that. But as you can see, looking at the difference here, you've got an overlay, a digital colored or tan, I guess, overlay to simulate the newsprint look, because he's still printing on the white paper. I mean, this is, as strong as anything else. So he's figured out a way to do this and make it look good. Public domain is the raw material. So he's talking about how to pull stuff off of the public domain. Then he goes into some of the work he's done, and he actually did a bus and did what he called a mobile artist residency, and went around the country. And then he talks about some of the things he's done. Now he's got some stuff on some of the exhibitions, and it's all very interesting. There's Chris, actually made a movie and showed it at Angoulême in France. Pretty cool. And then some of the workshops that they've done talking about what cartoonists can teach engineers and some of the engineering workshops they use with comics. I bet those were some very precise looking comics. Then his bibliography and his endnotes. So anyway, really neat book. Those 4 pages in the middle, though, I mean, that's just gold. That tutorial on how to make vintage comics. If this is your thing, if this is something you want to try in making your comics, pick this up. Find a way to get it. If nothing else, I will give you Chris's contact information, like his Instagram account or what have you. Or no, he's on Blue Sky now. I'll give that to you and you can take a look. But anyway, comics making, teaching the technology of comics at the Comic Art Teaching and Study Workshop at Rice University. Neat little book. So glad I took a look at it. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This has been FANzine Live. New releases, the work of Chris Sparandio, comics making. And don't forget, take a look at his first person video. It's really good. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks again. I'll catch you next time.